Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Akram and you're watching Knowledge 360. In the previous video, we discussed about array data types in PostgreSQL, and in this video, we'll discuss about domain data types. Domain data types is a custom constraint data types. So let's see how we can create domain data types, and we'll see some examples as well. So in this example, we are creating one domain called position int as integer, and this will allow only the positive integer values. So first, let's create the domain. So to create the domain, we follow this syntax: create domain, then the domain name as the data type, then check constraint. So let's create this domain. So the domain is created. So now let's use this domain in a table. So in this case, we are creating one table called my table, and we have one column defined ID, and the data type is position int, that is the custom domain. So let's create this table first. This table is created. Now we'll do some valid and invalid inserts. So since we have defined the position in to be positive number only, and if we are trying to insert the positive value such as 5, it should be inserted. So let's check. So it is inserted. But what will happen if we provide negative value? So in this case it should fail. So let's check this. So this failed and the error is value for domain position in violates check constraint that the position in check. Now let's see casting operations using custom domains. So domain constraints are not checked after the operations unless explicitly casted. So for example, here we are selecting the data like this id -1 as result from my table, and we know the id value 5 is inserted, and if I do -1 and the output should be 4. But what will happen if I do -6? So it should be a negative number. So let's query this. So it returned -1. So in this case we have got negative number, but we have defined the position int as positive, but it will not be checked unless we defined it explicitly. The same thing we are doing here, that we are reapplying the domain constraint using casting operation. So this will fail if result is negative. So let's see this. So this failed because we know id is stored 5, and if we do -6, the result should be -1, which violates the position int domain. So that's why this operation failed. Now let's see advanced domain usage. So first is domain over enum. So this one we have already covered in enum data types when we had discussed the enum data types in PostgreSQL. So in this case we are creating one type and defining as enum, and the values we have provided. That means these are the possible values for this enum. So let's create this type first. So this type is created, and now let's create one domain valid status as order status, and the check value should not be equals to pending. So let's create this domain. So this domain is created. So in this case we have created one domain over one enum. So and now we'll use this domain in the table. So here we are creating one table called orders, and we are using this domain. So let's create this table called orders. This table is created. Now we make some insert into the table. So we know if we insert this data shipped, it should be inserted because this is allowed, and this was the part of enum, and also it is the not violating the domain constraint as well. So let's insert this data. So this is inserted, but if we insert pending, this will fail because the pending is here in the enum, but we are restricting that using the domain. So this should fail. So let's check this. So this failed. So that means our domain and the enum is working properly. So the conclusion is domain types help enforce consistent constraints across tables. So this was all about domain data types in PostgreSQL. If the video was helpful, do like the video and subscribe the channel to get the notifications for upcoming videos. In the next video, we'll start a new topic, functions and operators in PostgreSQL, where we'll cover the topic of logical operators. So let's meet in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.